Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Breakers virtual holiday open mic. I hope it's the only virtual one. I hope next year we're back to normal. Normally, I would introduce everyone separately, but tonight they're going to introduce themselves. My name is Hannah Shandling. I've been here 16 years. I'm one of the elders, literally. I'd like to again welcome you to the virtual holiday open mic. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas soon, and Happy Kwanzaa. I'm going to make two, maybe three requests of you. First, please turn off your phones. We've had that problem in the past, so please turn off your phones. Secondly, if you've turned them off, please turn up your hearing aids. You're going to have a wonderful evening, I promise you. And I walk often, English, grammatically speaking, I often walk in the back of the building where there's a lot of greenery and I hear voices. I hear voices anyway, but our first representative of all of our talent is going to tell you about those voices and why you're hearing them when you're walking in the back of the Breakers. So have yourself a merry little Christmas and a wonderful evening. Thank you.
I am Joanne Gardner, and I am very excited about the opportunity to share with you an idea that I discovered not too long ago. Since we've all endured these 9 months of gloom and doom, as an avid reader, I kept looking for a new idea. I thought I've got to have something bright and exciting and self affirming. And so I kept reading and looking, and it was only a couple of weeks ago that I discovered what is my current new idea, and I want to share it with you. It was an article in the New York Times Magazine titled, "It Appears That Trees Communicate and Cooperate." I've never heard of such a thing, and I'm not a scientist. I'm not a forester. I'm just an individual looking for something exciting and fun to think about. And that's what I'd like to share with you. Now, because I'm a bit of a novice in this field of forestry, I'm going to refer to the actual article from time to time. It was very long and in some cases very scientific, but I'm going to give you the Joanne Gardner version. The article was based on work done by Suzanne Simard. She's a professor at the University of British Columbia. And all her life, she had lived in the shadows of a forest and developed a real sense that something happens in the forest among the trees that needs to be discovered. So she did her graduate work in this area and spent 30 years with her teams traveling all over the world, tromping through forests, coastal and otherwise. And what she discovered to me is absolutely unbelievable. And that is that all of the forest has a communication system that is ongoing all the time. And she submitted her research. First of all, she submitted her premise, and there were lots of critics. And her premise basically was, I believe that all of the forest interacts with one another. And the critics were upon her and said, sounds far too girly, Girly, to me. But she persevered. And as I said earlier, 30 years of research have gone into this. And so let me just begin with at the beginning, which is her version of what she was able to do. She discovered that fungi threads link every single tree in a forest, even trees of different species. And carbon, water, nutrients, alarm signals, and hormones even are transferring all the time throughout the forest itself. Chemical alarm, for example, is a signal that is generated from one tree to another. When there is danger, they communicate that. And chemical alarm prepares nearby trees for that. Seedlings severed from the forest underground lifelines are much more likely to die than their network counterparts. And as I said, although her skeptics were loud, she kept going. And today she is recognized as one of the most innovative scientists of this century. Foresters typically regarded trees as solitary individuals that competed for space and resources and were otherwise pretty much indifferent, looking for their space to grow. An old growth forest is not that, she says. It is a vast, ancient, and intricate society. There is conflict in a forest, but there is also negotiation, reciprocity, and perhaps even selflessness. Pretty interesting to me. She explained that trees sense nearby plants and animals and alter their behavior accordingly. Some studies have even suggested that plant roots grow toward the sound of running water, and that certain flowering plants sweeten nectar when they have or sense a bee nearby. At one of the TED seminars she presented, she said, a forest behaves as though it's a single organism. And the emerging understanding of trees since her research has been made public is unbelievable. Human beings have relied on forests for food, medicine, and building materials for thousands of years. But the forests function as some of the planet's vital organs. Forests suffuse the air with water vapor, fungal spores, and chemical compounds that seed clouds, cooling the earth by reflecting sunlight and providing much needed precipitation to inland areas that might otherwise dry out. A majority of the carbon that's found among the forest organisms captures at least 24% of the global carbon emissions. But when deforestation, in other words, going in and doing clear cutting, destroys that, it significantly diminishes that effect. When a mature forest is burned or cleared, an invaluable ecosystem and one of its most effective systems of climate regulation. Evidence of clear cutting, for example, that's a fairly common technique, the writer suggested they were looking over a valley onto an area that had been clear-cutted. Dirt roads snaked up and down the incline. Some parts of the slopes were thickly furred with conifers. Others were treeless meadows, sparse shrubland, or naked soil strewn with the remnants of sun-bleached trunks and branches. Viewed as a whole, the haphazardly sheared landscape called to mind a dog with mange. Although clear cutting is not as common as it once was, it is still practiced about 40% of the time in the United States. And clear cutting removes those living sponges and disturbs the forest floor, increasing the chance of landslides and floods, stripping the soil of nutrients and releasing stored carbon to the atmosphere. Sounds a little technical, but to give you an idea of what she has done. At another TED seminar, she said, trees have always been symbols of connection. Yet for most of recorded history, living trees have kept an astonishing secret. Their celebrated connectivity was more than that metaphor indicates. It is a material reality. And the writer was walking with her through a forest, and he says, as I knelt beneath that white bark pine, staring at its root tips, it occurred to me that my whole life, I had never really understood what a tree was. At best, I've only been aware of just one half of a creature that appeared to be self-centered, but was in fact large. And then he goes on to say, trees and fungi were once a collective life form of unprecedented might and magnanimity. So what does this tell us? I think that in reality, those trees that we see out the window, those trees we wander past in the courtyard, recognize us as a presence and convey that to their counterparts at the subterranean level. So here's my New Year's suggestion for you, or even this week. If the weather holds and you decide to take a stroll through the courtyard, walk slowly as you approach a cluster of trees. And keep in mind that as you are acknowledging the presence of those trees, they too are not only acknowledging you, but may in truth be talking about you. Thank you.
I believe it. Well, you're not done yet, are you, Joanne? You are not done yet. All done.
Pardon me?
All right, I believe it. Oh, Joanne, I wish you go on.
Did I cover it? Okay. Yeah. And, I think it's very exciting. Yep.
Yeah,
I'll do
sure
it.
is. Hi, good evening. My name is Elise Nowak, and I've been here at the Breakers. I'm actually in my 16th year, which to me is unbelievable. Now, see what's on my head? This is a clue about what I'm going to sing. And please feel free to sing along here or in your homes. You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donder and Blitzen. But do you recall the most famous reindeer of all? Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose. And if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeers used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then how the reindeers loved him as they shouted out with glee, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. Thank you. Now, I'm going to close with something that actually has made me think about living here at the Breakers, because I started to think about what is youthful, what's young, and I decided that what keeps us youthful is staying engaged with life, no matter what that means, if it's reading the newspaper, going to a class. And so I found this little saying, our souls don't get older. They never wrinkle, wear out, or tire. They see life's beauty and hear the voice of conscience as clearly as ever. And so no matter how many years pass, each of us remains forever new inside. And that's something to celebrate. So remember, to grow old is to change is to be new. I'll always remember spring. Thanks a lot. Have happy holidays.
No, something went wrong with it. Something went wrong with the thing.
Watch the cord again.
Yeah. Come on. Just want to see.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Carol Holmes. I've been here, I think, 4 years now. I can't remember. I keep losing my memory sometimes, every once in a while. This song that I'm going to do is a Victor Herbert classic, and I think most of you will align with it. Let's see if I can do this. Toyland, Toyland, little girl and boyland, while you dwell within it, you are ever happy there. Childhood's joyland, mystic merry Toyland. Once you pass its borders, you can never return again. Now, when you've grown up, my dears, and are as old as I, you'll often ponder on the years that pass so swiftly by, my dears, and all the many lands you will have journeyed through. You'll often recall the best of all, the land your childhood knew, your childhood knew. Toyland, Toyland, little girl and boyland, while you dwell within it, you are ever happy there. Childhood's joyland, mystic merry toyland. Once you pass its borders, you can never return again. Toyland, toyland, mystic merry toyland.
Hi, my name is Annette Schmidt. I've been here not quite a year. It'll be a year in January. I'm sort of a companion to this wonderful storyteller who's going to tell us the story of Silent Night. So I'm going to start out at the beginning of Silent Night, which was, of course, started out in Austria. And here we go. Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht, Gottes Sohn, o wie lacht, lieb aus deinem gottlichen Mund, da unschläfrig die Stund, Christ in deiner Geburt, Christ in deiner Geburt.
Thank you, Annette, and I'm going to attempt to tell you the legend of Silent Night. Not one sound came from that organ, not one note. Franz Gruber, the organist, began to get very upset. And in despair, he said, I must go and tell the priest, we have no music for Christmas Eve. What are we going to do? And he rushed to tell Father Joseph about the disaster. He said, I think the mice must have eaten the bellows in the organ. Or maybe the organ was destroyed by the flood. What are we going to do? And Franz was pacing back and forth and wringing his hands. And at first the priest, Father Joseph, was tied up in fear and anxiety, and then calm came over the place. He said, well, let's pray about it. And Father began to pray. And then after the prayer, Franz said, oh, how simple Father made it sound. And then Father said, I'm going on out in the community to solve some of the problems, visit the sick, the homeless. And as he traveled out through the parish to take care of all that was going on, suddenly he got a call saying that the woodcutter's wife had had a child. And he rushed through the snowbanks so he could welcome that child and bless that child. And when he got home that evening, he sat down. And he was warmed by what he saw, that tiny face of a child. And that child nestled in her mother's arms. Oh, he was warm. His spirit was warmed by what he saw. And that memory carried him back centuries to the Christ child. The Christ child in his mother's arms. And he thought, what a beautiful sight. And when he got home, he thought about what he had seen, and he said, oh, I would love to share this memory with my congregation. And he began to think, how can I do that?
And he took his pen and words began to flow. He began to write, "Whole silent night, holy night, all is bright, all is calm. Round yon virgin mother and child, sleep in heavenly peace." And he said to the organist, "Put me some music." And the organist said, "I don't have enough time." And Father said, "Have faith. God will give you the melody." And sure enough, the organist began to come up with a tune for the guitar. And that song was performed right there at St. Nicholas Church by candlelight many, many years ago. And since that time, it has been sung in many languages all over the world and has been sung in many, many places. And our songbird right here, Annette, will give you the American rendition of Silent Night right here at the Breakers. Thank you.
And I'd like you to join me. I'm going to do 3 verses. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child. Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight, glory stream from heaven afar, heavenly host sing hallelujah. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born. Silent night, holy night, Son of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth.
Come on up.
We'll try it.
I'd like to say a few words about you first. Okay? Hi, everyone. I want to introduce you to June Hewitt. Hi. June and I met at the North Center Senior Center, and we met in a writing class. And when June told her story, I walked up to her and I said, "We must work together, whether you want it or not. We're going to work together." And so we started writing, and we wrote something about Christmas, and we wrote about what we wanted to do to get away for Christmas. June wanted to go someplace that was really warm, where she could rip off her clothes and jump into the water. I also wanted to do that, but somehow my vacation started badly, ended badly, never got any better. So instead of talking about that, I'll talk about something that no one likes, which is a visit to the dentist. The dentist said, "Your front tooth is dead. I saw it from across the room." I wonder if dentists are more obsessed with teeth than anyone else is about anything else. Dentists are said to commit suicide more than the members of other professions. Is it because they notice too much about our mouths? Can't stop thinking about those misaligned teeth? Dream about them relentlessly? Can't sleep? Finally have to commit suicide just to stop the misaligned images haunting their nightmares? If Hamlet had been a dentist, would he have held up a cast of a mouthful of teeth instead of that skull? The orthodontist said to me, "Have you ever thought about doing something about your front teeth?" And I said very ashamedly, "No, actually." It's strange, but of all the things I hate about the way I look, and there are many, I have never blamed my mouth for my lack of beauty. He looked at my gums and he said, "You don't floss, do you?" Of course, I was ashamed. I said, "Sometimes." He said, "You don't have to. Your gums are so strong that it would be difficult for someone to give you periodontal disease. It's genetic on both sides. And who would want to give me periodontal disease, come to think of it?" I was referred to the orthodontist from my doctor, who had asked about an infrequent but intense pain I got in that very same dead front tooth. He didn't know what to do about it. Didn't seem bad enough. The pain didn't seem to be activated by hot or cold. And x-rays were taken, all seemed rather fuzzy in that area, as if something had taken up space there. The orthodontist took a $450 impression of my mouth. I asked if I could have them for an installation of some of my life as an art gallery. He gave them to me. He said, "The length of the area below your nose is markedly shorter than that of most people." Did anyone walk in the room and say, "Look at that woman, the very short upper lip"? A few years ago, I saw a woman, Japanese, with the same configuration. I removed tree, tried to lengthen tree, and then realized that I should have never started on the project. Because of her, I know that I cannot do anything about your teeth. And he said, "Have you ever thought of bleaching them?" "No," I said, "but you could talk to me about it." "I would suggest that you bleach them," he said, "or you could get veneers." I asked if he had any opinion about my front tooth, the one with the occasional excruciating, though brief pain. He said, since it happened so infrequently, it wasn't anything to worry about. And anyway, he couldn't see it clearly enough because somebody or something that lives in that tooth didn't want him to.
He told his nurse to call my dentist and tell him that I suggested that my teeth be bleached. Once I was sitting in the living room with my sister, and she said to me, "You have a stain on one of your bottom teeth. You should have it removed." During a routine cleaning, I mentioned to my dental hygienist that someone had suggested that I have that stain on my bottom tooth removed. The hygienist said, "Who?" I said, "My sister." She said, "Oh, your sister." When long after I had given up the idea of having sex ever again, no one has mentioned sex yet in this group. A man I knew when I was 20 called me. He had run out of things to do, having organized every kind of reunion one can imagine, high school, college, alumni. He decided to look up old girlfriends. I was not the first one that he called. The first one turned out to be dead. Then he called me the bleak girlfriend, the one who had never thought about him in 45 years, and for several years after that, had trouble not thinking about him. Thank you. This is my dear friend Jude. She moved here, I moved here. We are both very happy with that decision. Thank you for welcoming us. June Hewitt. Yes, it's me. It's her herself.
And I'm going to talk about a year quite some time ago, when I was trying to flee the cold weather. What?
Bring the mic closer.
Okay. This was in 1975. I was facing another Chicago winter, and I wanted out badly. I wanted warm. I wanted exotic. I needed cheap. The Chicago Council on Foreign Relations came through with a charter flight to Acapulco. And I and my friend Bobby to me, jumped on it. But where could we afford to stay once we got there? A friend of Bobby's had the answer. The Luna Del Mar, he said. It's way cheaper than the big hotels. As we debarked from the plane, my first thought was, it's warm. My second thought was, I'm in a foreign country. I can't speak the language. I'm a sheep for the shearing, a chicken for the plucking. Anxiously, I followed Bobby onto the shuttle bus that would take us to the hotels. It rolled past the beach hotels, shedding passengers. It climbed up to the cliff hotels with the beautiful panoramic views of Acapulco Bay, dropping off more passengers. Indeed, all of the passengers, except for Bobby and me. The road dropped down again, and the bus stopped in front of our hotel. We knew it was our hotel because on a large front window, an unsteady hand had painted in white the word Luna, with a crescent moon under it, and under the moon, Del Mar. We'd like your cheapest room, I said to the clerk. Surprisingly, the room was shabby and depressing. So was the next one. The third room was larger. In fact, it had 3 beds. It looked as if we had reached the acme of the Luna Del Mar's accommodations. We took it, fished out our bathing suits from our suitcases, tore off our street clothes, and ran for the beach. Back in our room at bedtime, we looked at the flimsy lock on our door. That night, and every succeeding night, we dragged a bureau in front of the door. Day 2. The defect in our plan came home to us. Being warm is wonderful. Going to the beach is wonderful, but you get used to it quickly. And we had no money to go anywhere or do anything. There was a bar in the Luna's courtyard, but no one was there except the bartender. On day 2, we did meet one other hotel guest. I am Julio Cesar, impresario, he said. He told us he booked acts into the Acapulco clubs. He showed us what at first looked like a child's action toy, but when he pulled the string, a naked man entered a naked woman from the back. We smiled politely. He offered to take us to nightclubs. Warily, we made excuses. We checked the bar that evening. It was empty. Day 3, Bobby ran upstairs with news. She had met a couple of Canadian hockey players who were being comped at the big hotel on the beach. They want to take us driving in the hills, she said excitedly. This did not sound to me like much of a step up from the offer of Julio Cesar, impresario. But I walked over to meet them. It turned out that I didn't look any better to them than they sounded to me. They shuffled us off to swim in their hotel's beautiful ribbon pool, landscaped with lush tropical plants to look like a natural water feature. It still stands out as the best brush off I ever got. That evening, the Luna's bar was still empty and Bobby was getting cranky. Day 4. While I was still in the room, Bobby called up from the bar. There are people down here. People, come down. Julio Cesar, impresario, was there, sitting at a table with a young Brit who looked like a cross between Roger Daltrey and Peter Frampton, only more so. His eyes were big and blue and innocent. His golden hair cascaded in curls around his face. He had been staying with a local family until his stomach rebelled. Now he was staying at the Luna Del Mar. At a lull in the conversation, he nodded over to the long bar. Look at those Germans. They don't laugh. They don't talk. They just sit there and drink. The Germans were occupying most of the bar stools, and they did look a little morose. After just one daiquiri, I wanted everybody to be as happy as I was. How to cheer them up? I spoke no German. What about a German song? I opened my arms and strutted down the length of the bar, belting out the only German song I could think of. Oh Tannenbaum, wie Träusen. And just like in the movies, as I passed down the line, they began to smile and laugh. They came and sat at our table and told us they were Austrians, all working at the same hospital and here on holiday. Later in the evening, I treated Julio Cesar to a rendition of De los Cuatro Muleros. He looked pained. Perhaps my accent was poor. Day 5, Bobby and I went down to the bar to wait until the shuttle bus came to take us to the airport. The beautiful Brit was there again with the Platters. The Platters were doing a show in Acapulco and staying at the Luna Del Mar. Not all of them. The girl singer took one look at the place and left. We all sat around and chatted. We drank, we chatted some more. One of the Platters asked me to sing My Funny Valentine to him. I can tell a lot about a person by the way they sing that song, he said. I paused. Could I sing to a Platter? On the other hand, this was my chance to sing to a Platter. I put on my most soulful expression and I opened my mouth and sang. Later, when we got on the shuttle bus, I was clutching a Platter's LA phone number, nursing a sunburn, and wondering whether the odd sensation in my stomach might be related to the amount of Acapulco Bay I had swallowed.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm going to read you 9 poems, and I'm first going to read the titles of the poems. And if the 9 poems, don't get worried, it will only take me 6 minutes to read. So here are the names. I feel like I'm too far away. So, and then it happened. A chick is born. Hope, song, a fact, thoughts on prayer, an uncoiled web, old age, and to Wonderland. To Wonderland. Okay. First is, and then it happened. In a lily white, small, affluent town, I'm 12, and there's a parade on Saturday. Then I climb onto a business building roof to see marchers against Jim Crow. So many black folk, and I watch and watch. Then police cars came to the march, and 4 guys with guns came, shouting at me to get down. A gun then pointed straight at my head, and I raised my hands and yelled, "My name is Tim Weidman, and I'm in 8th grade, 7th grade in Bronxville High School." And I was terrified. And the gun guy started to ask me questions then. After that, nothing was ever the same. A chick is born. Chick's been in his eggshell. He likes it there. Warm, dry, clean. He says that I might like it there too. And he'll be out soon. Hope. I keep my head up so my heart might find joy. I stumble, but I can stand up straight. If I fall down tomorrow, I hope I can raise myself next week. A fact. The filthy rich are only filthy. they have nothing else. For them, nothing else matters. Thoughts on prayer. For me, prayer is a kind of dance. Daily and peacefully, my heart dances with God. An uncoiled web. When I consider the contours of my life, then I realize that the shape of my life is all over the place. I'm glad some of you are liking this. It's nice. It's nice to read when some people are appreciating it. I'm not sick. I'm old. My present tense is passing away. Where's my place now, old age? With the feebleness of infants, with the high spirits of youth, with the pretensions of middle age? Life has now changed for me. My glasses are in the wrong place. I can't find a phrase when I need it. In books or in my mind, I can't find it. I swim now in death's current. Here I am stuck with my dreams, but I'm happy. To Wonderland. To Wonderland. I put a feather in my cap. I put a feather in my hat and opened up to Wonderland. There, the figs grew on fig trees, and frog trees grew frogs. But Wonderland wasn't at all strange. When a cloud of smoke rose up over that strange land, it had a light that spoke. And I learned then that nature looked like a dragon's sleepy eyes. With my arms lifted up high, I heard the songs of Wonderland. And I knew this land was my home. Thank you.
Yeah, very good, Jim.
Okay. I'm Joe Piazza, and I guess I'll take this off now. God, I've been at the Breakers about 6 years, I guess, and it's been good. It's been good for me. I'm going to sing, first of all, A Foggy Day. Probably all of you are familiar with it. George and Ira Gershwin wrote it, and first sung by Fred Astaire, of all people, in 1937. So there you go. An oldie but a goodie. I was a stranger in the city, out of town were the people I knew. I had that feeling of self-pity. What to do, what to do, what to do. My outlook was decidedly blue. But as I walked through the foggy streets alone, it turned out to be the luckiest day I've known. A foggy day in London town had me low, had me down. I viewed the moon with much despair. The British Museum had lost its flair. How long, I wondered, could this thing last? But the age of miracles hadn't passed. And suddenly I saw you standing there. And in foggy London town, the sun was shining, shining everywhere. Let's see, Al and I are going to sing. Oh, Al's going to sing first. Yeah. Right. Where is that famous singer, Al?
He's here. Come on, Joe. Al's gonna sing and then you and Al gonna sing together. Yeah.
Okay.
Get off the stage, it's mine.
I just introduced you. What more can I do?
Do it again.
Go, Al.
Famous Al.
I'm gonna sing this song I learned when I was 5 years old. I had 9 brothers and sisters. So I sang this song and my mother finally listened to me. Now all of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my arms, I'll never use them. Now take my lips, I want to lose them. Get out. Now left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, dear, without you? You took the part that once was my heart. Now why not? Why not take all of me? Pretty baby, I said why not? Why not take all of me? Oh yeah. And then I wrote, get up here.
Two mics.
There's 2 up there, yep. So you take one and then, Joe, you take one and then Al will take one.
Where's my ear?
When I learn that stuff, I'll
It's
do
on your
that next
earring.
time.
You got it?
I don't know. I'll pull my ear off.
There you go.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, what are we doing here?
We're gonna do it now that we did on Broadway. Not New York, not even Chicago. It was in the alley on Broadway. Anyway, go ahead.
Near Clark Street, right?
Yeah, near Clark Street.
Oh, well, this song you all know. Baby, it's cold outside. I really can't stay.
But baby, it's cold outside.
I got to go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
This evening has been
Been hoping that you'd drop in.
so very nice.
I'll hold your hands, they're just like ice.
My mother will start to worry.
Beautiful, what's the hurry?
My father will be pacing the floor.
Listen to that fireplace roar.
So really, I better scurry.
Beautiful, what's your hurry?
Well, maybe just a half a drink more.
I'll put some records on while I pour.
The neighbors might think,
baby, it's bad out there.
say, what's in this drink?
No cabs to be had out there.
I wish I knew how
Your eyes are like starlight now.
to break this spell.
I'll take your hat. Your hair looks swell.
Why, thank you. I ought to say no, 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 sir.
Mind if I move closer?
At least I'm going to say that I tried.
What's the sense of hurting my pride?
I really can't say.
Baby, don't hold out. But baby,
Maybe
it's
it's
cold
outside.
outside. I'm hooked up so you can't sign it. Yeah, you got my hand?
Yes.
Hold it for a while. I'll sit me in the back.
Okay.
Enjoyed it? Where's more of that came from? Growing up in a family like mine. One Washington. Where did mine every day? 5 sisters. Hey, you did all right there, kid. 2 more lessons for that.
Well, hello, everybody. Oh, how can I match all this? This has been so much fun. And now this, oh, take the mask off. Oh, thank God. It's awful with the mask on. I can't understand a goddamn thing. Oh, it's wonderful to have the mask off. I can jump up and down. Oh, I could. Oh, that's less serious than what I'm going to read. What I'm going to read is a story called Grace. And it has a frontispiece or whatever you call it. And God, as promised, proves to be mercy clothed in light. That was from the poet Jane Kenyon. So now this is about me and my mother. My mother and I were always at loggerheads through my growing up years. I didn't hope for a miracle then. I was only defiant, wanting to be free of her. But the miracle happened anyway, all of itself. I came to England after her heart attack, not yet the one that would kill her, though that came soon afterwards. I came to take care of her, apprehensively, because I would be there for a month. Oh, my Lord, how would it be, I wondered? A month is a long time. It was 5 o'clock on a beautiful summer evening, the kind of 5 o'clock on a summer evening when nostalgia comes in waves, opening up the world. I took 2 gin and tonics to her room, one for her and one for me, just as I did every evening at 5 o'clock. We made small talk, as we always did, with nothing inflammatory being said, and the time passed pleasantly enough, as it generally did. But this evening wasn't like the others. This time, the miracle happened. There was a silence. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, my mother said to me, I bet you wouldn't have wanted another mother, would you? And I said, no. And I bet you wouldn't have wanted another daughter, would you? And she said, no. And we laughed. Excuse me. Good God. Thank you. And we laughed and laughed and laughed. Everything changed after that. I loved my mother and my mother loved me. Now we enjoyed our conversations as we drank the gin and tonics of our evening ritual, which continued until I went back to America when the month was up. She seemed well and in good spirits. ready to live another round. The next heart attack came suddenly and killed her. I couldn't get there in time. I felt very sad, but we had had our goodbye, and my mother is with me as I write. This is hard to maneuver. Yes. Oh, she went that way. Well, is anybody else having this kind of trouble?
Yes. Yes, indeed. All of us.
Okay, yes, I'm glad I have the walker now. Slope here. Andrew? Yeah, what are we going to do about the slope? Oh, life is so complicated and difficult. But sometimes it's fun. There you go.
Okay, to all of you watching this at home as a rerun because of our technical difficulties, thank you for bearing with us for this rescheduled program. And I want to give a quick seated bow to all of our wonderful performers here in the showroom. So thank you to all of you for being here and performing with us. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Anybody want more?
Okay.